Good morning to all. In our last class, we have discussed about the proteins, peptides, and its structures and all we have discussed. So now we are going to discuss about the proteins. So proteins classification first we'll see. So classification of proteins based on molecular structure. Protein classification based on molecular structure. So on molecular structure, the proteins have been classified into fibrous proteins and globular proteins. So first we shall see how what is the fibrous proteins are. So fibrous proteins are nothing but these are the types of proteins which consist of an linear thread-like molecules. So the structure will be having thread-like molecules. You can see here. So it is just like an thread-like molecules they are. So they will be lying side by side to form a fiber. So you can observe. So it has been forming a thread-like structures and they are lying side by side here. So if they are lying side by side, what happens is, so one of the thread-like form will be holding the other one. It will be holding the other thread-like form through an hydrogen bond or disulfide bonds. So these will be like this only, the fibrous protein. So it is an polypeptide. It is an polypeptide chain it is. So many peptides will be bonded to one another and it will be forming an polypeptide chain there. So those polypeptide chain will be holding one another. So it is through an hydrogen bond or disulfide linkages. So these are usually insoluble in water. So the common example of this fibrous proteins are keratin, hair, that is keratin which is present in hair, and nail, collagen in tendons, so myosin and muscles. So all these are the main examples of fibrous protein. So you can observe all these explanation. So it is a chief structural material of animal tissues also. So because of this hydrogen bond and disulfide bonds, so these will be the thread-like molecules or long peptide chain will be holding one another, and they are these whatever the hydrogen bonds and disulfide bonds are there, they are very stronger in nature. Because of them, the structure will remain as it is. So the hydrogen bond and disulfide stronger bonds are present, because of which the structure or the structures or the thread-like polypeptide chain will remain as it is. So the next one is globular proteins. So globular proteins are nothing but, so it is a type of protein where the molecules are folded together. You can observe the folding here. So it is folding will be present. So these will be folded in such a way that it will be forming a spheroidal shape. So it will be giving rise to a spheroidal shape. So that is what the globular proteins is. The molecules are folded in such a manner that so it will be almost giving rise to an spheroidal shape. So they also have hydrogen bonds. They also have van der Waals forces they have. So they'll be having dipole interaction will be there. So, but all these are weaker intermolecular forces. So the intermolecular forces which are present in globular proteins are weaker in nature. It is due to the presence of hydrogen bonding, or it may be an weaker hydrogen bond will be present. When it is compared with the fibrous, the hydrogen bonding or the interaction will be weaker. So you can find dipolar interaction, van der Waals forces you can find. You can also find hydrogen bonding in them. So these are comparatively very weak and they are soluble in nature. So in case of globular proteins, what happens is, so the hydrophobic part will be inward and hydrophilic part will be outward. So we have a structure over here. So in that structure you can observe. So it is forming a spheroidal shape, but in that spheroidal shape, hydrophilic part will be outward and hydrophobic part will be pushed inward. So hydrophobic part will be pushed inward and hydrophilic part, which is extended outward, will be interacting with the water molecules, because of which they are soluble in nature. So the most important biological functions of this globular proteins are, so they are catalyzing biological reactions. They catalyze biological reactions. So they are nothing but they are called as enzymes. Enzymes are the biological catalysts. Next one, they act as regulators of metabolic processes. So it is one example we'll take how it is going to regulate. That is an protein hormone, that is insulin. So it is going to maintain or regulate body sugar level. So that insulin is a globular protein, so which regulates the sugar level in the blood. So that is what the main function of that, and that is one of the example there. Next one, they act as antibodies and protect the body from diseases. So that is antibodies where some other allergies, any foreign substances, any substances which are causing allergies to the body, then an antibody will be generated. That antibody is nothing but it is a globular protein. So all these are the main functions of major biological functions of globular proteins. Example we can move on to. So example is same thing. We can insulin we can take as an example. We can consider the enzymes also as an examples. And you can also take an example as albumin of egg. So it is also an globular protein. These are the few common examples. Next, we'll move on to the next topic, that is structure of proteins. Structure of proteins. So structure of proteins, proteins is an very complex, it has a very complex structure. So it can be studied under 4 different levels, that is primary structure, secondary structure, tertiary and quaternary. So actually the proteins consist of large number of amino acids. We have studied that one. So all these amino acids undergo a condensation, that is amino acids will condense with one another by giving out a molecule of H2O, and it is going to join with one another, so through a peptide bond, and they have an 3-dimensional structure. So that structure and shape are quite complex. So that's why they have been studied under 4 different levels. So 4 different levels, that is the first one is primary structure, secondary structure, tertiary and quaternary. So primary structure, that is what you are observing now on the screen. So proteins may have one or more polypeptide chains. So each polypeptide chain in a protein has amino acids linked to one another. You can observe there. So each amino acid is being linked to one another through a peptide chain, and it is having a specific sequence. So it will be having a specific sequence, that is nothing but, so you can observe in normal hemoglobin. So at the end we have a chain there. Normal hemoglobin, it is valine, amino acid. The first starting one is valine, histidine, leucine, threonine, proline, glutamine, glutamate and lysine. So all this is nothing but it is the chain. It is a sequence. So it has been sequentially, the amino acids are sequentially, it has been arranged. So protein, the primary structure indicates the specific sequence of an protein here. So the primary structure of protein indicates so it is just like a specific structure of amino acids linked to one another is called a primary structure of protein. I'll repeat the statement. So the specific sequence in which the alpha amino acids, various alpha amino acids are linked to one another is called the primary structure of protein. So if at all, if that order is going to change, what happens? If that order changes, then the function of the protein is also going to change. So it is nothing but, so you can observe there in the slide, normal hemoglobin. So I had made a color change there. So it is what a hemoglobin sequence I have given there. So in that hemoglobin structure, so you can make out, so it is glutamine, sorry, it was glutamic acid. So glutamic acid in a chain, if it is given, that is normal hemoglobin, you can make out GLU, glutamic acid. So in the next sequence, you can observe the remaining everything is same, only instead of glutamic acid, so we have alanine there. So that is nothing but only one amino acid in that whole chain, only one amino acid is different. So what we can say that the entire thing, the entire function of that particular protein is going to vary. So that is, it is one change in amino acid is going to result in a defective hemoglobin. So above one is the normal hemoglobin, and the other one with only one amino acid change in a chain is leading to defective amino acid, and it is found in the patients suffering from sickle cell anemia. So like this, only one amino acid in a chain. So there will be hundreds of amino acids linked together to form one single polypeptide chain. But if at all, if one amino acid is different in that chain, then it is going to show a different function. It is going to show a different characteristic. So that is what the importance of a primary structure. So the primary structure tells us about the sequential arrangement of amino acids being seen in an polypeptide chain. Next one is secondary structure. That is primary structure we have discussed. Now it is secondary structure. So in the secondary structure, there is an folding. There is an folding takes place. You can observe there. So above one is a primary structure. So earlier one also we have studied that one. So that is been folding now. It is going to fold. It has been folded now. You can observe in the structure. So it has been folded now. So in this folding, there are two different types of folding. One is alpha helix folding, and the other one is beta sheet folding it is. So first we'll understand what is the secondary structure, why it is going to fold. So why the straight chain amino acids, straight chain, what numerous amino acids, polypeptide chain it is. So why that long polypeptide chain is going to fold, we shall understand. Or what is the secondary structure, we shall understand. So the secondary structure in which the polypeptide chains so is going to fold, it is going to take a shape, or it is going to fold due to hydrogen bonding. So there will be hydrogen bonding between the molecules, between the amino acids. So because of which it is going to take a shape, or it is going to fold. And it folds in two different ways. One is alpha helix structure, and another one is beta sheet structure. Or we also call that one as beta pleated sheet also will call. So depending upon the size of R groups, these two different foldings, different types of foldings are possible. So the first one, alpha helix folding, how it is we shall see. So this is what alpha helix folding is. You can make out there. So it is an spiral kind of folding. So if the size of R group is very large, so we have seen, so amino acids, we have a common structure or general structure for general formula of amino acids, and each amino acid will be differing from R group. If that R group is very larger in nature, then so the hydrogen bonds formed between the CO of one amino acid residue and the NH of the another amino acid will be fourth one. So the first one, CO group will be having the fourth amino acid, where NH group will be they will be linking through hydrogen bond. You can observe in the slide also an hydrogen bond. In the first figure, you can observe the hydrogen bond. There CO of one amino acid is there, NH of fourth one, that is leaving second, third, fourth amino acid whose NH group will be bonded with the CO of that particular amino acid, and that hydrogen bonding leads to the alpha helix structure. So that is the only difference. So after leaving 4 amino acid, that is after leaving 3/4 amino acid group is involved in the hydrogen bonding, which gives the alpha helix structure. So this causes the polypeptide chain to coil up into a spiral structure, and that is what we are naming as the alpha helix structure. So this is about the alpha helix structure, and many fibrous proteins such as alpha keratin, myosin have alpha helix structures. Because of helical structure, human hair are stretchable and elastic to small extent. So you can what you have observed, if at all, if it is slightly, if it is stretched, you can feel the elasticity of that hair. So that is due to the alpha helix structure. They are coiled, the proteins, the keratin, whatever is present, it is coiled in nature. So that's why it is. If the human hair fiber is stretched, the hydrogen bonds are either stretched or broken. But when the stretching force is removed, the hydrogen bonds are reformed. So because of which, again it gets the coiled structure itself. So the secondary structure, next it is a beta pleated structure. So in this part, that is the third structure, you can observe the third structure. So the third structure is nothing but beta pleated. The first two are alpha helix structure. So the third one is beta pleated. So in this beta pleated, this was proposed by Pauling in 1951. Alpha helix also same thing. So Pauling by 1951 it was formed. So what is the differences? In beta pleated structure also we have a hydrogen bonding. In alpha helix also hydrogen bonding was there. But in alpha helix the hydrogen bonding was intramolecular. It was intramolecular. But in beta pleated structure it is intermolecular hydrogen bonding. So in the beta pleated sheet, so the polypeptide chain, you can make out the color amino acids. So they are just like a thin polypeptide chain. 2 polypeptide chains are there. So in that 2 polypeptide chains, so they are lying side by side, and each one is holding the other chain through a hydrogen bonding, that is intermolecular hydrogen bonding you can observe. So the zigzag manner, they are arranged in a zigzag manner. Likewise, many polypeptide chains will lie side by side and it will be interbonded to one another to form a sheet. It will be just like a sheet form. So because of that reason, it is called as a beta pleated sheet. So it is just like an 3-dimensional structure, just like a pages of a book it will be. So it is forming one line, beside that one more line it will come. So it will be lying side by side through interbonded through intermolecular hydrogen. So intermolecular hydrogen bonds. So they are called as beta pleated structure or beta pleated sheet it is. Next one is tertiary structure. Tertiary structure. So tertiary structure, it is just a folding of a secondary structure. So whatever the secondary structure is there, so further secondary structure is further folded, then it will give rise to an tertiary structure. So tertiary structure of proteins represents the overall folding of the polypeptide chain, that is further folding of the secondary structure. So tertiary structure will refer to, or what it signifies is, so whatever the manner it is going to fold, that molecule, if it is having a further, the tertiary structure, a further folding it shows. So that further folding of that particular protein indicates the protein folding manner itself indicates the type or nature of that particular protein. So tertiary structure refers to the manner in which the entire protein molecule folds up in the three-dimensional space to produce a specific shape. So at a particular pH or temperature, each protein will take up a shape, and that the shape of that particular protein will be energetically most stable state. That is, very less energy it will be having. So more stable they will be. So it will be having bonds in tertiary structure. In primary we have seen intramolecular, in secondary we have seen intermolecular, and in tertiary structure, so we are going to see hydrogen bonding, we are going to see disulfide bond, hydrophobic interaction, and ionic bond also sometimes. So all these bonds will make the structure more stable. So each secondary structure will be folded in such a manner that so the force of attraction between the molecules will be very, very stronger in nature. Next one is tertiary structure. In this you can observe. So we have a secondary structure. Secondary structure. So what in that secondary structure, few will be in alpha helix form, few will be in beta sheet form. If they are folded further, then it will lead to an protein in the three-dimensional structure. The second structure, the second part of the slide, it is showing the three-dimensional tertiary structure. It is been showing. Next one is quaternary structure, fourth level, that is quaternary structure. So quaternary structure, that is most of the proteins are composed of two or more polypeptide chains. Each polypeptide chains will be comprised of many number of amino acids. So these two or more polypeptide chains, whatever is there, it is being called as subunits. So these subunits will be held together, or these subunits, these long polypeptide chains, you can make out the last structure, quaternary structure. So under that you can see the different colored polypeptide chain. So these polypeptide chains, each polypeptide chain is being held with one another. It is going to hold them one another through hydrogen bonding or electrostatic interactions and van der Waals interactions. So these interactions will make the quaternary structure more stable in nature, and this is just referred to an. So we can say that quaternary structure is the spatial arrangement of the sub units with respect to each other. You can observe now. The first one is the primary structure, where carbon, hydrogen, everything is clearly visible there. And the same primary structure, if it is being folded in alpha helix form or beta plated structure, it will give rise to secondary structure. Though secondary structure, once again, if it is being folded, if it is being more folded, then it leads to tertiary. So tertiary, such kind of many polypeptide chains. Such kind of many polypeptide chains, if they are undergoing the folding further, this folding all will arise due to hydrogen bonding, electrostatic interaction, or van der Waals forces, and this will give rise to an quaternary structure. So from primary structure to quaternary structure, we have understood how this will leads to the protein structure. The quaternary structure is the last structure. So that is what I said in the beginning. The structure of the protein is an complex structure. So that's why we have studied that one step by step. From each step, how it is going to lead to the actual structure of the protein. So next part is very, very important. That is denaturation of proteins. So denaturation of proteins is nothing but the process which changes the physical and biological properties of protein is called denaturation. So that is nothing but, so a protein is there. Suppose if at all, if you are going to change, if you are applying energy, or if you are changing a pH, if you are changing a temperature there. So if any such changes, if it is taking place, then so the nature of the protein is also changed. or that a physical function, physical property of that particular protein is going to change. That changes the entire nature of the protein or entire functioning of that protein. So that is what called denaturation of protein. One example I'll give. So if at all, if you take an egg white, if you take, it will be like just like a liquid in nature. So but when you boil that one, so it will be converted into an white hard mass. White hard mass it will be converted. So when you are heating that, when you are boiling that egg, so the nature of that albumin is being lost. So when you heating is nothing but we are increasing the temperature, we are changing the temperature there. When you change the temperature, so the nature of that albumin is going to be changed, or it is going to be different. So that protein itself is going to lose its property. So D is nothing but losing, naturation, losing the nature. So when you change the pH, temperature, or with some chemical agents, if you are adding to that, so by that changes, so it is the protein is going to lose its actual nature. So that process is called as denaturation. So due to this, whatever the changes we are doing, that is either changing pH, changing temperature, or by adding some chemical agents to it. So what is going to happen is the hydrogen bonds, whatever is there, it is going to be disturbed. When hydrogen bonds is going to be disturbed, so either it is helical structure, so it will be showing a helical structure. So that helical structure is nothing but it is coiled nature. That coiled nature gets open up. So it will be uncoiled. It will be uncoiled and it is going to lose the property. So it is going to lose that property. So that is what called denaturation of proteins. So it is just like you have seen an straightening of hair. Hair straightening you might have heard. So where we are going to apply the temperature also, slightly it will be heated. So actually the hair, if it is more coiled in nature, more it is curly in nature, then if at all, if it is slightly heated and it is slightly stretched, so it is going to form a straight form. It is going to gain a straight form. So it is going to lose its native property. It is going to lose its native structure or original structure, and it is going to form a straight form. That is what called as a denaturation of a protein. So that is just an example. So after some days or after some time, it is going to regain its original nature. That is called as a renaturation. Reverse of denaturation is nothing but renaturation. So if at all it is just in the form of hair straightening, we have taken an example, but most of the time, so whatever the denaturation is done, it will be an permanent permanent thing only. Like egg albumin we are taking and we are boiling that egg. So after boiling or on boiling, the nature itself is going to be changed, or it is going to lose its nature. It cannot be regained once again. By cooling, we cannot regain that nature. So that is what denaturation is. So denaturation can be carried out by changing pH, which breaks down the hydrogen bond and electrostatic attractions. Likewise, so the I said the chemical agents may be urea. So that whatever the urea it is going to form, or whatever we are going to add, it is going to form an hydrogen bond with our protein groups. So due to that stronger hydrogen bond, so whatever the weaker hydrogen bonds are there, those will be broken. If older, weaker hydrogen bonds are broken, then it is not going to be in a coiled form or folded form. So it is going to form a straight chain. So it will be interacting with urea there. So likewise, we have heating or agitation, which disturbs the attractive forces. That is one such example we have discussed, that is egg white or albumin, curdling of milk, which is caused due to the formation of lactic acid by bacteria present in milk. So what are all these are nothing but the examples for denaturation of proteins.